Okay, just to preface, I'm a really anxious person, so I might just babble a lot. So this research project, like Dr. Gentile said, was done in partnership with Dr. Sarah Todd, who's the director of the School of Social Work here at Carleton, Dr. Dan Irving, who's sitting right there, who's an associate professor in Women and Gender Studies and Human Rights, and also Dr. Gentile, who just kindly introduced me, who's an associate professor in Women and Gender Studies and Human Rights, and the graduate advisor for Women and Gender Studies. So this whole project started in the winter term of 2019. I took a course with Dr. Gentile that was called Queering Archives, and it examined the archival turn in historical and theoretical perspectives with an emphasis on sexuality, race, and gender as subjectivities in queer, trans, and colonial archives. During this course, I got the opportunity to work quite closely with Dr. Gentile and the Beaver Boxing Club of Ottawa in kind of a hands-on learning setting where we started to conceptualize the club as not only a physical archive of documents, posters, and sport history, but also as an archive of feelings. So what captured my interest most as a fourth-year social work student was that Beaver Boxing Club has this really overwhelming commitment to making sure everybody who's there is a community and maintains their status as a nonprofit organization and creates a shared space of care and resiliency. My work as a social worker and as a social work student has always been about the depathologization of wellness. And I'm really interested in what being well looks like for the individuals that I'm engaging with and finding out ways to facilitate what a pursuit of being better than we felt yesterday looks like as it gets defined and redefined by each unique person that I work with. So the goal of this research was to reconceptualize what we consider self-care as a collective engagement in which individuals are defining wellness, being better, health, and fitness in ways that feel good and make sense to them outside of the pressures of for-profit industry sales pressures. So the questions that I set out to answer as part of this internship were the following. What can we learn from how systematically marginalized persons claim space for themselves historically? How can we use an effective analysis of remembering to unearth historical narratives that fell out of view? And what are the political and social implications of ensuring that beaver boxing continues to exist? So this research really analyzed the connections between nonprofit spaces, community building, and the physical act of archiving documents themselves. We began the creation of both a digital and physical archive, like Dr. Gentile mentioned, that reconnected fragmented histories of Ottawa's amateur boxing community. This allowed for us to piece together a narrative of belonging where communities that were comprised of shared systematic disempowerment found space for themselves to engage with personal pursuits of well-being in the boxing club itself. Through archiving its history, we were able to see a shift from amateur boxing as a pursuit of wellness and community, and really working through and sitting with your feelings to a corporate-sponsored for-profit spectacle that we enjoy on the TV. There's a real importance, I feel, in knowing how communities have come to found themselves and make space for themselves, and remembering a history of struggle and resistance that's embedded within the physical memorabilia that we have in these spaces, because these are the stories that give us access to deeply human qualities of how political histories get written, from the existential experience of trauma, loss, and difficulty, but also of relating to each other and feeling like we belong. So working with the Beaver Boxing Archive has really been a means through which my academic work as a social work student here at Carleton can relate back to the communities and the people that inspired me to pursue that degree in the first place. Because through this work, we're decentering physical place as a history of beaver boxing, and we're actually prioritizing the individual narratives and experiences of wellness, their pursuits to be better people in ways that make sense for them as it's personally defined and embedded with their own meanings. So ultimately, this project suggests that a narrative must be understood as an ongoing process that allows for individuals to put meaning and to pull meaning from fragmented histories across multiple places. Beaver Boxing Club's historical narrative is the process of piecing together the effective responses to the rediscovery of these archives and these posters from 1939 onwards that have been in storage for decades. Physically documenting the posters was a way to facilitate a mobilization of knowledge, of affect, and of memory. And this process involved learning experiential skills such as providing summaries and descriptions of the things that we were seeing, touching, feeling, organizing the archival material, and really learning how to create a formal archive so that things don't deteriorate any further, and collecting community-based experiences that will hopefully go further now that we have ethics board clearance to conduct interviews. Beaver Boxing is functionally a boxing gym, but through the project that we did over the summer, it really revealed itself as a community center that's dedicated to and committed to serving racial, gender, and socioeconomic differences. This term that's currently in progress, I actually have the pleasure of continuing to work with both Dr. Gentile and Dr. Irving in the context of an independent study where we continue to sit down and theorize about the meanings of beaver boxing on both a personal effective site, and also a physical site, while starting to engage with the boxers themselves as opposed to just the posters and literature. So our project really in this way was an exemplar of the power of archiving and creating history and constructing a narrative and public history as a form of community building. Thank you.